Good afternoon, Miss Flattery. My name is August, but I'm the career advising coach and I work with WorkSource Montgomery. I am working in one school right now, which is Kennedy High School, previously working in Silver Spring International and Tacoma Park Middle Schools. So today I'll just be interviewing you on your professional background, just learning a little bit about you, what you do, what it looks like, and any advice that you have for anyone that may watch this interview or for myself as a career advising coach, okay?
Sure, sounds good.
Perfect. All right. So to get started, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your professional background?
Sure. So my name is Bridget Flaherty. I am the manager for the WorkSource Montgomery Out of School Youth program, which is called Launch Your Future Employment or Life. I have been in the workforce development field for about 5 years now, and my whole career has been spent working with different nonprofits. Primarily, I've worked in the spaces of adult workforce development, training and development in terms of facilitating content and instructional creation. I have also worked with apprenticeship on both the youth and adult sides, working for an electrical contracting association as well as a nonprofit where we placed students in professional roles in the fields of finance, business, and IT.
Okay. I love to hear that. I like what you're doing. I do want to ask, in the field of work that you do, a lot of times people often misconceive what that looks like when we're working with youth or when we're trying to help them to navigate outside of high school into, the actual real world. What do you think are the most important qualities to succeed in the work that you do?
I think in this particular work, I think it's most important to really have passion and to have an open mind. So, truly having a desire to work with everyone, regardless of their background, acknowledging that our out of school youth program serves those between the ages of 16 and 24. And there are a lot of different life circumstances that can happen in that age range. So, really, just having not only the desire to make each and every student have a connection to their future career and what they see themselves really doing, but being open minded enough to not have any preconceived notions about any
Mhm.
life experiences that some of our participants might have faced or experienced in the past. So I think those are probably two of the most important qualities, especially in my line of work, and then the willingness to collaborate with other both agencies that serve young people as well as our career advisors and staff who are inside the school because we don't want to be like too far separated because obviously we serve some folks who are either dropping out or just finishing high school. So that collaborative environment is super important as well.
Thank you. I like that. I like that you brought up the fact collaboration is also a key into the things that you do. Was there any specific trainings or educational steps that you had to take to prepare you for this career, or was this something that you just naturally gravitated to and then chose to take the proper steps necessary to be able to succeed?
So that's a great question. I tell all the participants in the Life program this story as well. I went to the University of Maryland, College Park. I grew up in Maryland and I had two internships while I was in high school. One was with an orthopedic surgeon and one was with a physical therapist. And so going into college, I thought that I wanted to do one of those two things, either go into medical school and become a doctor, become an orthopedic surgeon, or become a physical therapist. So there was a little bit of overlap there. So I went to the University of Maryland to study kinesiology, which is the study of human body movement. And at the urging of my parents, who told me maybe you'll change your mind, I also added a second major in public health science because there was a lot of overlap there. And I worked in a physical therapy office all throughout college. And I was applying to PT school after finishing college, but I ended up deciding to take a year off after getting into a very, very expensive private school that had an incredible program, but one that I really could not afford. So I said, okay, I think I need to take a little bit of a pause here. I need to make my application stronger. Might need to retake a test or a class or something like that. And at that time, I started a service year with a nonprofit based in DC, and it was much more aligned with my public health course and my public health internship that I'd completed during my undergraduate time. So I found myself feeling really aligned and excited about that opportunity. And I told myself, you know what, if I still want to go to PT school at the end of this service year, I absolutely will. But I ended up really just kind of falling into the field of workforce development and supporting my clients through job skill training at that time.
Nice. So while listening to you, I know that I said that I will have some questions for you, but I kind of want to give you some feedback based off of what I'm hearing from you. Um, there was a question that I wanted to ask you about what qualities do you think attribute to your professional success? Just listening to you, instead of asking you that question, if you would allow me to kind of give you some positive feedback on what I've noticed having our interview so far. I see you're very driven, you're very passionate, but also I see that you're very self-aware. So to kind of spin it a little bit back to you, do you think
Mhm.
that within the three things that I've named, those are three qualities that you do have that has attributed to your success, and will you plan to go forward either within this career field or outside of the career field?
Absolutely. So I love that question as well. I definitely attribute my success to my passion to help others, regardless of kind of what that looks like. I've always known that I wanted to help other people, and I have had to be increasingly self aware as I've gotten more into my professional journey. I think a lot of times we can have aspirations for our career, but trying to figure out if they make a lot of sense or if they really will serve our not only our goals but really be able to serve other people. I think that's always been my main goal, is serving as many people as I can. And so I absolutely think that that is something that I will continue in my professional journey, to really always look after and really think of those values and things that are most important to me. And I would never want to have a job that didn't feel as though it was aligned with what I really want to do and accomplish.
Absolutely. Thank you. Before jumping into our next question, I believe your RIASEC themes was social, investigative, and enterprise. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I can clearly see how that connects to the work that you do. May you explain or discuss a time when you had to adapt to a significant change in your work environment, whether it was rapidly or at a certain pace? How did you handle that?
Sure. So when I was in college and I was working in a physical therapy office, I have had been learning Spanish probably as early as sixth grade, starting from sixth grade all the way up through college. But when I was working in the physical therapy office, I worked with two physical therapists who spoke no Spanish, and our patient population was about 75% only Spanish speaking. So I very quickly realized that I was the bridge between those folks who were speaking only Spanish and the therapists who had no Spanish whatsoever. And we did have access to different translation tools, but they weren't the most effective. So I would really put my Spanish to use, and I would explain to the patients, like, I'm so sorry, my Spanish is a little bit rusty. I've been talking about, poetry or poems in my classes in college, and my patients were saying, my shoulder hurts, so I would be almost acting out a lot of charades, and so I would be like, like this motion, and so then they would be like, yes, that does hurt, and then they'd be like, but also, do you want me to tell you the word for that? And I was like, yes, please. So with their kind of coaching and support, I actually developed a bilingual fluency in Spanish, and really was able to serve as that translation piece. But it was something that I realized pretty quickly, in order to best serve those patients, even though I wasn't maybe 100% confident in my Spanish, I needed to really learn to step it up. And it was absolutely worth it. I'm very grateful to my patients for their amazing patience and willingness to work with me at that time.
Love that. I love that. You're so in tune with what you wanted to do that you was willing to take the steps necessary to make sure everybody was comfortable with it, but also bridging that gap. I absolutely love that. So inspiring. Um, oh, you're like making me so happy over here because I just love everything about this. What do you enjoy doing outside of work that contributes to your professional success?
One of the things that I do, and I often joke that I have no free time outside of work, but I love to run. I run 3 marathons, and I'm currently training for my fourth. I am also a coach for Girls on the Run, which is an after-school program that serves young girls in third through eighth grades. And I have worked as a coach at both the elementary and middle school levels. And prior to taking my first job working with the youth population, I only had experience with working with adults. And so when I was asked about how I would work with, even though they were young adults, I actually talked about my Girls on the Run coaching experience as a way to tie in my volunteer interests and kind of outside of work hobbies into my job by saying, I felt that it made me a good candidate for working with youth, even though I didn't have that professional experience. And it's also allowed me to, I sit on the board for the Girls on the Run Young Professionals organization in DC, and it's allowed me to make some incredible networking connections and really allowed me to grow my professional network with meeting with people who have very similar, like-minded interests to myself. So it's been a huge asset, but it's just something that I absolutely love to do. And even though some of the lessons are not even the 5K at the end of the season is the big like goal with Girls on the Run, but the day-to-day lessons, I honestly find myself saying like, oh, you know what? I need to use more kind words with myself. So I find myself all the time saying, oh, whoa, that was not me being a good friend, and it takes me back, and I kind of really work to empathize with the girls that I coach on that level as well.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing, especially with the youth in different communities or different neighborhoods or just in different zip codes overall. Um, that's that's what we need. I oftentimes when I hear people speak on the things that they're doing, even when it's coming from a nonprofit organization, and you know that what you're doing is impactful or just simply changing one life, if it's not a lot, it means a lot. And people see it, people recognize it. So thank you for all that you're doing. We're going to move forward within the work that you do. And I also spoke of you being passionate because I personally enjoy that quality, being able to speak with you and see that you are passionate about the work that you do. Was there a role model or do you have a role model in your life? If so, why do you look up to this particular person?
Absolutely. So I would say my biggest role model, and she has been from day one, has always been my aunt. And she is a doctor. She's an internal medicine physician. So certainly some of that fueled my young desire to go into the medical field. She also joined the Coast Guard after medical school and served as part of the public health service. So she was also a deciding factor in adding in that public health course of study that I followed, and her leadership has always been incredibly just amazing for me to see. She was a rear admiral in the Coast Guard, which was a very, very high rank. And even upon her retirement, the things that the people who worked with her had to say about her were unbelievable and really have just been an incredible inspiration to me. She is someone who, if I am having feel like I'm struggling in my role, I will often go to her and try to get some of her point of view on things to hear a little bit about, how she might approach the situation, especially now that I'm in a role where I'm not only managing a program, but I'm also managing a team. So she has been absolutely from day one, such a huge inspiration and continues to be really just a great sounding board for me and has really been a huge part of my professional success.
Thank you to your auntie. We appreciate her. I'm glad that you do have that support system or that one person that look up to you that you know you have to keep going. So Here's a question that I'm going to give you a second to think about when I do ask the question.
Mhm.
If you have or could have any fictional character as a coworker, who would you choose and why?
I really like this question. I think it's such a fun one. I have to say, I think, and this is like a little bit old school, but I loved the Nancy Drew books growing up. I think they later became like computer games, and there've also been like a couple movies about her. But basically, she is a detective who solves problems with her friends. So I would say the reason that I would love for to have Nancy Drew on my team as a teammate is because her problem solving and her way of really just coming up with innovative ideas to solve problems has always been an inspiration to me. And I think that is a huge part of my program is very new that I'm managing, and we are constantly evolving and taking in feedback from participants to do things in different ways. So having someone who is an incredible problem solver would be a huge asset to our team.
I love how you answer that. I love how you answer that. And the innovation that falls into your investigative RIASEC theme. So I completely love that. Before we start to wrap this up, I just have one last question for you. If you were able to give advice to any student that came to you, or if you were ever able to give advice to anyone overall, what would your advice be for them to continue to move forward or just to continue to navigate themselves, whether it's through high school or stepping out into a workforce that they may be unsure about? Relating to something that you said earlier was you taking on many things when you were going into when you were in school and you had a focus on this, but then you also had your backup plan from your parent, your mom saying, hey, well, maybe this will work out for you as well. We have those people who oftentimes say, hey, well, I see this in you, so I think this may work, knowing that we are passionate about something else, but it might not be the time. So, what
Mhm.
would your advice be for someone who may be navigating through that throughout their high school years, preparing to step out to a workforce, but they're like, Ms. Belt said this, but I know that I'm really connected to that.
Yeah, oh, that's a great question. So I think just to go back to the RISEC themes, as you mentioned, mine are very apparent. Every career that I have had, from my first jobs working in restaurants and customer service, all the way up to now, kind of where I am as a program manager, and even where I hope to go in terms of like working as a consultant or a director, they are all within my RISEC like career sort of umbrella. So I would say, especially for folks who are not sure of what direction they see themselves in, to really lean into those strengths and also consider their values and what they're passionate about. So I'd say a combination of those three things: your strengths that you have already inside yourself, your values, those things that are most important to you, and really trying to put those together and find something that you're passionate about, even if it is a bit of a winding path to get there. As long as you feel like the work that you're doing is making a difference and is something that you really care about, I think you will never be unhappy and you'll never be confused about what is going to come next, as long as you really have that passion and care for what you're doing. So it's easier said than done because you do have to find what that is. But I would say, even if it means trying out a few different things or leaning into those RIASEC themes and taking a look at some common ground, and thinking of where you see yourself in the future and those different things that you really want to be able to do, always having something to kind of look forward to and almost chase after, I think is hugely important. And when you have a passion for something, it really does come through. And so going to those, as you said, Miss Belt, going to those people in your life who know you very well and saying, you know what do you see me being good at, or what do you see in me that I don't see in me? So say not only finding those strengths, but really working to find a passion would be my best advice for really having continued professional success.
Thank you, Miss Flaherty. I enjoy that. So, as we come to the ending of our interview today, I do want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your feedback, and I want to thank you for any advice or, any knowledge that I myself have gained while interviewing you, who, but for someone else who may have also gained some knowledge or, a bigger perspective on how to lead in the professional workspace or how to prepare themselves afterwards. I will look forward to speaking with you again. If you have any questions or concerns after our interview, please feel free to email me, call me directly. I'm here for you, and I'm sure you're here for me. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much for your time.
Yes. Thank you. This was so
Not a
cool.
problem.